this Pontiac Grand Prix, I believe, back in the garage. It's the one that I put a battery terminal on, and you can see that's looking perfect. That CRC stuff works really well. Okay, so anyway, it's about a month later, maybe a little bit longer, and it's here because the car was overheating. She said she saw antifreeze dripping out the bottom of the engine, so put some water in the system because it was completely empty. Gave it a few pumps here, and it did not take long to find a leak. Let's see if I could get some pressure inside of here with one hand. Give it the classic one hand job. I'm like a pro at this. So anyway, you can see that little elbow right there. It's made out of plastic, and that's exactly where a leak is coming from. So the more you pressurize it, you can see it. Okay, so I'm pretty sure those are pretty cheap parts. They're pretty affordable. I've never changed one of these, but let's see what it takes to get that one little elbow changed out. Alright, so overall not too bad of a job. Everything came apart pretty simple. This part was actually connected to the hoses here going to the heater core, and initially I wanted to just leave it attached. What the hell was that? I guess the wind just blew it over. Even the wind scares me. Gotta add that to the list. So yeah, I want to keep this attached, but you know, we got two pipes, two of those plastic coolant pipes that go into this. We got one right here and then another one right here, and they both one of them was broken, and that's the one that was leaking, but the one that wasn't leaking, when you go to remove it, it breaks anyway because the plastic is just so brittle. Alright, so they both ended up breaking. Here it goes right here. As soon as you start moving it, it just completely cracked right there, and that's where we were getting our leak from. So it's been a pain in the butt to try to get the broken pieces out of here. And I got this one out. Oh. I got the big chunks out of here, but you could see back there, there's some pieces of plastic that fell inside. So that's why I decided to completely take it off of the car, and I'm gonna run some water through it to try to get these pieces of plastic out of here. Alright, so I got the boards all cleaned up, as you can see. Now it's very important that you do not use any tools, or I mean, I can't say you don't use tools because you need to, but when you're trying to remove the broken off pieces of plastic that are inside of here, do not scratch the housing, because that's where it's going to seal and you could potentially create a leak. And if it's bad enough, you may end up having to replace this entire piece if you scratch the bore and create a leak. So what I did is I came in here with a very light steel wool and just manually clean it out until it looks perfect. I would not recommend using any power tools or anything like that. Just come in here with some light steel wool and clean out that sealing surface so that the new O-ring has something to seat up against very nicely. And then just take it over to a garden hose and basically backflow it. So push the water in from the backside here, and it's going to push anything that might have fallen inside. It's going to push it right out, and as you can see, everything looks nice and clean, perfect. I did some cleaning inside of here, but I have to do a little bit more. Now these pieces that are actually attached to the car, you got to be really careful with them, because this one, you could, like as you can see, you can just take it off the car. It's easy to work with. If you get something inside, it's easily, you know, it's easy to backflow this and get out whatever you get inside of there. But if something falls inside of here or inside of there, you see how that could turn into a headache. And that one actually still has a piece of plastic broken off inside of there, as you can see. So I'm gonna have a fun time trying to get that out of there. Boom, there you go, got it out. So the trick here, what I was doing is, first of all, spray it with plenty of silicone lubricant to kind of help it start moving. And I came in here with my pick, and you really want to be careful with this because it's easy to scratch, like I mentioned earlier. The whole idea here was to not push up hard against the wall to the point where you're scratching the wall. Basically trying to grab the back lip of the plastic. And once I grabbed it and I started starting to move a little bit, don't just keep pulling on it. What I kept doing is working all the way around it, you know, pulling little by little until it just pulled right out. Definitely something you want to take your time with. Don't force it, because if you cause damage, you're screwed. then you put the new piece in and it's not going to want to seal. So at this point, all of the broken pieces are out, and it's just a matter of keep cleaning. That's the most important thing about a job like this. This job is actually kind of easy to do. It's just very tedious on the cleaning. The cleaning is number one. You have to get everything perfect. All the sealing surfaces have to be very nice, just to make sure you don't have to come back in here and do this job again. Another tool you could use is a toothbrush. It actually works really great when you spray it down with some brake parts cleaner. It lets you get inside of those tight places. You could clean out the bore without leaving any debris behind, and it's not going to scratch the surface of where that O-ring has to seal. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with the way they turned out. Let's see if I can get you guys a look. Look at that bore. Looks pretty dang good to me. And then the one that's really hard to get to, not too bad, right? Looks pretty good inside of there. And it's the same thing all the way around. It's super difficult to get this camera angle for you guys. But what that surface looks like right there, the whole thing looks like that. Let's say we got the green light to go ahead and start putting everything together. Owner just dropped these off. This is about the only thing Dorman is good for. It's sad, but it's true. These are actually the metal ones. I told her to get these over the plastic ones. I don't know if they're gonna last longer. They should last longer, but I guess, well, I'm not gonna say we'll find out, because this car these things will probably outlast this car. Alright, so we are ready to put the new parts in, and one thing I'm going to do is make sure to spray the O-rings with silicone spray, just to make sure everything goes in super smooth and nothing binds up. Alright, so this main piece is bolted back down. I got my two lines back here reconnected. The fittings going into this housing right here, they fit nice and snug, but the two ends going into the I don't know, the block, the heads, I don't know, the heads, it felt kind of loose, honestly, I'm not gonna lie. So what I'm going to do is go ahead, before I put all this stuff back together, go ahead and pressurize the system and make sure we don't have a leak before I do all of this. Okay, so I think we have a confirmed fix. I filled up the system with water, and as you can see, I got it right up to, well, almost to the red line, but that's where I stopped, and it has not dropped pressure. I don't hear anything dripping, anything hissing, or nothing. And looking at two connections, I don't see anything dripping out of them. Yep, still holding, it's not moving at all. Alright, so that's good enough for me. Now I could go ahead and put all this stuff back together. And of course, we are going to drain the water out of this system. I'm not going to leave it in here because we are, well, first of all, you're not supposed to, but most importantly, we're going into winter. You don't want to leave water in the system. So we have brand new gallons of antifreeze here, Dexco, that we're going to go ahead and put back in it. Okay, so I got the alternator back in, the brackets are all installed, got the belt on it. And in the time that it took me to put all this stuff back together, the cooling system is still exactly where I left it. It hasn't moved at all. Okay, so if that doesn't tell you this thing is fixed, I don't know what does, because that thing is not leaking anymore. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. Like I said, this job isn't bad. It's all about the cleaning. You got to make sure the surfaces are perfect so it seals nicely. And yeah, that's it. So I'm going to finish putting all this together and drain the water out of the system and fill it up with antifreeze. Today I have a 2005 Chevy Equinox. I was going to say Equinox. So it's here for lower control arms, stabilizer links, inner and outer tie rods on both sides. Unfortunately, yeah, all this stuff is beat to hell, but the subframe on this car, just classic, rotted away. And this is just a quick look at it, but if you look overall, if you look at the subframe, it literally has holes in it from corrosion. So unfortunately, this subframe does not have much life left in it. I'll bring it up to the owner, but I don't know. You know, I always hear the same thing. Oh, I'm just gonna keep the car for another year. I've heard it 100 times. Here's the left side lower control arm. You can see how bad it was. This thing just pretty much fell right out as soon as I pulled out the arm. Yeah, this thing, it didn't handle so great when you're driving it down the road. You could just tell that the suspension was really worn out and super loose. So changing all these parts should make a huge difference. And so far, everything on the driver's side is actually going pretty smooth. Got the outer tie rods off. Not too much of a fight here. Everything came off pretty easy, just like the rest. So I think that's it. We got the tie rods off. We got the stabilizer link off, the control arm. So it's just a matter of putting on new parts on and then repeating the same exact process on the passenger side. Alright, so it's time to put the stabilizer links back on this car. And the first thing I notice is the nuts that are supplied with these are the type that get smashed, I guess, so they don't come off by themselves. Which, honestly, I'm not a fan of this, but some people have told me that if you get a good quality part and their manufacturing is, you know, of quality, then there's no problem with these. But 95% of the time I'm dealing with cheap Chinese parts, so these normally don't go over very well. When you go to put them on, they just eat up the threads really bad. So I learned my lesson. I'm not even going to attempt to put these on without tapping them first. As you can see, I got the first nut in the vise and I've already tapped it, and all the threads are nice and clean. So I have to go ahead and do this one. You can see how far out of round this is. That's like oval shaped. Alright, so I figured while I'm here I might as well just do all of them, so I've already gone ahead and knocked the other 3 out. And we're pretty much all done here. I don't know, there's just something I really enjoy about tapping nuts. I just think it's relaxing. Well, don't take that the wrong way, okay? I mean tapping in general. Okay, as long as you're doing it right and you're doing the correct thread pitch, I think it's relaxing, making new threads. I don't know, maybe it's just me. But yeah, tapping nuts, huh? I'm gonna show you. So here goes one of the new stabilizer links, and before, you cannot thread these on by hand. And look at that, it's already going down. Makes a world of difference to fix that process that they go through to deform the nut. Got a 2012 Nissan Sentra, and it's here because the front brakes are grinding. Took the wheel off. First thing I noticed is this plastic shield was actually rubbing on the tire. You can see all the signs of it right here rubbing on the tire. So I noticed it was missing like one of these push-in clips. So I just grabbed one from my collection right here and popped it in. So now all of this stuff is held back. It's not going to be rubbing on the tire anymore. But anyway, as you can see, driver's side, no more friction material. The pads are wasted. Rotors are destroyed. And this is the first car I ever came across that both of the front brakes are grinding. Usually it's just one side or the other, right? It's like either driver's side or passenger side. But yeah, that's the driver's side. And I came to look at the passenger side really fast, and look at this. Yep. So the passenger side is also grinding. And the owner was like, I hear the noise on the driver's side. Well, the noise is also on the passenger side, I can tell you that much. Test driving the Sentra, make sure the brakes are okay. So far everything feels good, but I could tell this thing needs a wheel alignment. At least I'm sure other suspension parts are worn out, but it definitely needs a wheel bearing. That thing is pretty loud. The faster you go, the louder it gets. But here for brakes, and the brakes not working, not grinding anymore. So that's it for this one. I think we have a 03 Chevy Tahoe. I think it's 03. Anyway, came in because check engine light came on. It's running rough. So it has random misfire codes, specifically 1, 3, and 5. So that's bank 1. We also have codes for lean bank 1. And we have codes for O2 sensor, continuity or weak signal or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head. Anyway, this is perfect example of someone who would go ahead and throw, you know, plugs and wires at a truck like this, when no, it's not going to be that. It's not going to be something like a mass airflow sensor, because it would affect both banks. It's not a vacuum leak, because I checked the fuel trims. The fuel trims look good. So I went ahead and made the call. It's the O2 sensor after looking at the data. So as you can see, I got the car jacked up on the left side here. We go underneath the truck. Alright, so that's downstream sensor. And here goes upstream bank 1. First thing I noticed is this sensor is completely covered in oil. So it looks like I made the right call on calling a bad O2 sensor. So I have a new part here. I'm going to go ahead and change this, but he really needs to get this oil leak taken care of. As you can see, I got the old sensor off of the car. And you can see how it's just completely caked with oil. So here's a new one. We got a Denso unit, and it looks to be exactly like the one that came off. So it was not fun, but new sensor is in, and it is plugged in up there obviously, and everything is where it should be. It looks like you have plenty of space, but it's really deceiving. You don't. It's hard to get your hands up there. And let's go ahead, put the scanner on it, and start looking at this data and see if our misfires are still here. Alright, so the truck is running, and you can see it's idling about maybe like 600-700. Before with the old sensor, it was idling more like 400 or 500 RPM, and it was struggling to stay running. It feels a lot better. I don't feel any misfires. The truck just feels nice and smooth. We are now in closed loop here, and we look at the green line, which is the new sensor, and it is switching back and forth just how it should. Yeah, the truck feels good, nice and smooth. Like I said, no misfires. So I'm gonna go ahead and call that a fix, and that's it for this one. A 2012, I believe, Santa Fe. Look at the front wheel. Probably see how far tucked out that wheel is. So the front end just makes all kinds of bad noises. She took it to a shop. They gave her an estimate of $1,400 to replace 2 lower control arms and 2 outer tie rods. I don't know, guys, it seems a bit excessive to me, but I don't make up the prices, okay? So anyway, she did not think that they were being truthful as far as what's wrong with the car, so she brought it over here for me to look it over. And it does in fact need 2 lower control arms and 2 outer tie rods. It actually needs more work done. I guess they missed the rest of the stuff that it needs, but it does need those parts. So she went ahead and got these parts, and we're gonna go ahead and take care of them today. And yeah, it's pretty bad. So here's the right side wheel. That thing just shakes like crazy. Alright, let's go check out the other side. Oh, this side's even worse. Alright, let's start tearing into it. So as you can see, I got the control arm off, and this car is fighting me all the way to the end. It's a nightmare. Nothing wants to come apart. Everything just like completely rusted in place. But this ball joint completely destroyed. Yeah, so the struggle is real on this one. Alright, so I'm all done on this side. Wheels nice and tight, no more play. It's not wobbling how it should be. So I'm gonna go ahead and knock out the other side. You guys really don't need to see that because it's the same process. Just to show you guys, this side's all done. No wobble, no nothing. It's good to go. Everything's torqued down. This thing needs rotors, pads, and front calipers. The slide pins on the calipers are seized on both sides, and the pistons don't want to go in on the caliper. So if this thing ever comes to me for front brakes, it's going to need front calipers as well. It's a perfect example of why it's important to get your car inspected whenever you hear noise, and not just say, oh, I need this, can you get it done? They brought it here because there's brake noise, right? So they said put the front pads and rotors on it. Well, actually they came here just for pads, but I told them it needs rotors as well because they were just shot. So as you can see, I did what they wanted, front pads and rotors. Now it did need them, okay? But I took the car out for a test drive after doing the brakes, and there's a horrible noise, and it's still there. Looking closely at the rear shoes, the rear pads, look at that. There's like a hair right there of the pad holding onto the bracket. Same thing on the bottom. That pad is ready to just fall out of there. That's crazy. So they're coming to pick up the car right now. I'm gonna tell them do not drive this car. Get these brakes done right away. Here I am on the rear right side, and it's even worse. We're actually missing the clip that holds the caliper to the bracket. That spring clip, you see it's gone. Same thing with this pad. This pad's already wedged out of place. You see that? Look at that. Wow. I did not notice this first when they first brought it over. Yeah, this car should not. Alright, so it's about 8:30 p.m. and I'm trying to help this woman with the Jeep that we just saw the problem with the back brakes. So told the car's not safe to drive, so she needs a car for work. So we're gonna go ahead and try to get this knocked out tonight. Okay, so she ran to AutoZone to get the rotors. I'm not even gonna get into that. The issue with AutoZone and the knuckleheads that work there. Not everyone's a knucklehead. I'm just saying. We just had bad experiences. We all know how that goes. So I don't want anyone who works there to get offended. But so here's the old pad, right? It's worn down. You can see there isn't much friction material left on it. But when you put it right here on the bracket, look what happens. It pretty much falls through because there isn't enough friction material on the pad. But you know what? I thought that's really weird because by design, these things aren't normally designed like this. I've seen them to the point where a pad could have no friction material on it at all, and it's still gonna stay within the caliper bracket, right? So something else has to be wrong. Well, another thing I noticed is look at the rotor. Usually these rotors are centered in the caliper bracket, but look how this one's all the way off to the left, and off to the right there's a massive gap. So what that's going to cause is the inside pad has plenty of material to ride on right here, so that pad will never fall through because the rotor is close to it. But the outside pad, it's going to have the problem that we are expecting. So even if I get a brand new pad and put it in there, look at the metal right here. You can see with a brand new pad, there is not a lot of material right there for that backing plate to grab onto. So right now, sure, it'll be fine while everything's new. But as this pad starts to get low, eventually it's going to get to a point where this pad is going to try to fall right out, just like the old one did. There's something wrong here. I think this is not the correct rotor. Because what else could be wrong, right? I mean, it has to be the rotor. The rotor should be centered, but it's not. We got the new rotor from AutoZone, and it's pretty much the same thing. If you look from the top, you can see the rotor is pushed all the way to the left. We got this big old gap on the right side. So, I don't know. Was the car designed like this, or is it the aftermarket parts? I have no idea. But at this point, it's just gonna have to go on like this. Maybe I'll do some research and look into it, but yep, so I sandblasted the caliper bracket so the pads could slide smoothly. Got the new pad in right there, got the other pad, so I'm gonna go ahead and put this together. Alright, so the rear right side is all done, as you can see, and I got inside the car and pumped the brake pedal a few times to get the caliper to move where it's supposed to be. Now you can see the spring that goes right here is missing, and that's because the old one just popped off from the caliper being so far out of whack. So I asked the owner to bring me a new spring when she brings out new parts. So this is what she brought me, and it looks like it's for the front brakes. Yep. AutoZone, AutoZone, AutoZone. Get in the zone. Now, from what I understand and what I've been told by people who work there is as long as you have a pulse, they'll hire you. Okay? They don't care. Alright, so that's it for the rear left side. I'll pop the wheels on, torque the lug nuts down, take it out for a test drive. And I might actually take this car and drop it off to the owner because this woman doesn't have a ride, and she's already gotten a Uber like 2 times out here because of this whole circus of things going on. So she doesn't live far from here, so I think I'm just going to take the car to her instead of her having to pay for another Uber. Alright, so I'm here changing a battery on a Mazda CX-5, and while I was in the garage, a bird flew in here. Don't know where it's at, but I saw it fly in. It's scaring the hell out of me. Caca! Get out of here! Birds, they scare me. I need to get a whiteboard and just write down everything that scares me.